Good morning, PASW clients and staff and friends joining us. Welcome to our little LA history class. I hope you guys are enjoying these. I always try to incorporate music, of course, but it's nice to know a little bit about our city and the history that we have. It's funny because in Europe, history is 500-600 years old, and in LA, history is 100. If you're 100, then then you're doing pretty well. And so the reason LA is interesting to me, in a way, because there's a few things that really made Los Angeles different. And I'm reading a bunch of LA right now, going back to like 1781. And don't worry, like we're not going to be talking about 1781. Nobody knows what the hell was happening back then. Really, it was kind of just beautiful land and everything, but there was nothing really going on. Although I did read a cool fact that while the Boston Tea Party, the sophisticated Boston Tea Party was happening, there were Indians dancing naked in downtown LA on these what are now parking lots. So we were having fun out here. So, but what makes LA really different is the geography here, right? The weather, the everything around it, the mountains, the ocean, the geography, right? The car. We're talking about the early 20th century, 1920s, because the building we're going to be talking about today is from the 1931. But geography, the car, and Hollywood. Those three things are still what make LA different and Los Angeles different than any other place in the world, for better or worse. That's just but that's kind of what I think. And the car in particular was so influential because as we all know, LA is very spread out, unlike New York, so it's hard for people to see it as a city sometimes, because as many writers have pointed out, there's many cities in this one city and all that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to give you kind of historical context in the beginning that LA did not look like this at all 100 years ago, definitely 120 years ago. So but having said all that, today we're going to be talking about the beautiful building on Western and Wilshire, and we're talking about the Wiltern Theater. So it first opened October 7th, 1931. So if you think of 1931, this is during the Depression, right? Pretty much at the start of it. So the Wiltern was constructed as an act of faith in the future of this city. So it was almost like the architects, the city council, the people that give them a building, give them something that gives people hope and a change, and also get them to stay here, because for the economy, they need to make it a home for them. So the Wiltern was very influential in creating a cultural place right there for Angelenos that were suffering during this Depression. But it wasn't called the Wiltern. It was originally opened as the Warner Brothers Western Theater, because it's on Western, and it was primarily just for a movie theater. But Warner Brothers terminated the lease after about 2 years because people weren't coming, probably because of the Depression, but still it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. So it reopened as an independent theater a year later, in 1934, and it's rebranded. And I didn't know this, but when you think of it, it's very interesting. They name it the Wiltern. Why? Well, Wilshire, Will, and Turn, Western. Very simple. Cool name. I never put those two together because it's at the intersection right there. But the Wiltern, the building, was designed by the architect Stiles O'Clements of Morgan, and they were like the city's oldest architectural firm at that time. But look how beautiful it is. I mean, look at the distinctive blue glaze, the terracotta tile, and that was chosen by Pellicier's wife. So Germain Pelissier was this immigrant, and he came from the French Alps, and he bought 156 acres on the intersection for $3,200. This is in 1882, so this is really before LA is anything. At first, he opens a sheep ranch on this new property, so there were probably sheep wandering around Western and Wilshire at that time. He was less interested in wool production than, he really wanted a long-term investment. But and so the Wiltern, Warner Brothers, was built on his land that he owned. So for a long time, it was called the Pelissier Building, and it's a theater, and then there's offices, and a lot of doctors and dentists would, I think, quickly moved into those offices, but the theater was there for performances, and it has a capacity of about 2,300 people. So although it's not an architecture class, we should also point out that this building is one of the best examples of Art Deco architecture in the whole country. And we've talked about Art Deco, and it's kind of like this architecture and design that appeared in France after World War I originally. So this is like the 20s, right? And this was it was a style, buildings and jewelry, fashion, and all these things. And it's not to get too into it, but Art Deco is kind of like it was a pastiche of different styles put together that were sometimes contradictory. So in a way where it's modern, but it doesn't look like it's supposed to be modern, and it's all these kind of contradictory things. But and I don't even understand most of it. So but that building is very iconic for being one of the first and best Art Deco buildings ever. So and because it's a music class, so many musicians have performed there. I mean, there's not even enough to really talk about. Prince, Bruce Springsteen, Paul Simon, David Bowie, Rolling Stones, David Copperfield, the magician, and so many movies were filmed there. Barton Fink, American Hot Wax, Escape from New York, La Bamba. The front of La Bamba was filmed there. Purple Rain movie. It's just such a great building, and I'm really happy it's still there. I've been there once. I went there 2 years ago for the first time to see a very cool band, Saint Motel, and but that was the only time, and it was gorgeous entering the lobby and the bar, and just just when you're inside. And if you remember, we talked about beautiful Pantages Theater, which is what John Pazes said is probably prettier than Radio City Music Hall. And I've never been inside Radio City Music Hall, but I mean, I've been in the Pantages, and it's gorgeous. So it's very cool that we have these buildings in Los Angeles, cultural buildings, where one can enjoy beautiful art, music, painting, or whatever, in a beautiful environment. And that's so lucky that we live in a city like that takes its art and culture so seriously. Not in a serious manner, but takes it seriously, So I hope you are enjoying these little dives into LA. I know I am, because I'm very interested in the city that we live in. And okay, so that's the Wiltern Theater. Miss you guys, love you guys, and have a lot of good stuff planned for you in the future. So looking forward to that. Okay, have a great rest of the day. Bye.